What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. I'm Asif Body. This is a clip from the YouTube show, so please do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe, and give me your thoughts in the comments section below. Without further ado, on with the show. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we're going to be talking about the defensive side of the ball, okay? Here at the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast, I take pride in how much we attribute to defensive side of the ball performance, okay? I am a big proponent on emphasizing the running game, protecting the ball, not turning it over, right? Having an elite defense. This is where I believe the Philadelphia Eagles, ladies and gentlemen, are in a pocket, okay? I think they are clearly better than the Dallas Cowboys on the defensive side of the ball. The only thing that I will say, and we'll talk about this in just a second, is the fact that the defensive side of the ball for the Philadelphia Eagles, in comparison to the Cowboys, in terms of depth, it's about a push. It's about the same. Not a lot of depth on the defensive side of the ball here in Philadelphia. But again, let's look at the lineups here. We have Nolan Smith at the end. Jalen Carter, obviously, yes, there's some contract disputes here in Philadelphia, but he is in the building. Jordan Davis is there at nose tackle. He had a great year last season, coming off a nice year. I have really good faith and I'm pretty high on Jordan Davis in this upcoming season. I think he's taking a step as a leader on this defensive front. I believe they wanted Jalen Carter to be like a Fletcher Cox type of player. However, Jordan Davis has taken the mantle as leader on this defense and in this defensive line room, right? Moro Ojomo is also there. He had a really good season last year, despite the fact that the defense at times had some, again, as elite as they were last season, they had some shaky performances, especially against the run. Moro Ojomo, a smaller defensive tackle, but he could play. Flat out can play. And then, obviously, the other guy, Ty Robinson here. This could be Byron Young. This could be potentially Brendan Graham. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here in this defensive line rotation that the Philadelphia Eagles could exercise here. Again, this is where the depth comes into play. I don't know how deep they are on the defensive line in comparison to the Dallas Cowboys. And the Dallas Cowboys have a few guys here on the defensive front that, quite frankly, I think if you lined them up next to guys in Philadelphia, you would say, he either might be better or it might be a push here, okay? So listen, Rashan Gary here on the edge for the Dallas Cowboys, I think is a nice upgrade or a nice piece to the pie here. Donovan Ezeiruaku, another really good edge player, young guy, young player, pretty raw, athletic guy. He's got some game. I like the way he plays football. Kenny Clark, a staple in the NFL. He's been here and he's done this for quite some time now. Was in Green Bay. Actually, I think was one of the people who got brought over by the Micah Parsons trade to the Green Bay Packers, along with a couple of first-round picks. And then they used one of those picks to get Quinnen Williams, who I think right now, in comparison to these two defensive lines so far, he's the best player on the board here. Quinnen Williams is better than Jalen Carter. He's better than anybody that we have in Philadelphia on the defensive front, and he's one of the best defensive linemen in all of football. Quinnen Williams is an elite ball player. He was a New York Jet. That's why people don't take him too seriously, or rather, maybe people don't really know how elite he is. He changed life in Dallas when he got into the Big D. I should maybe rephrase that. When he got to Dallas, Quinnen Williams, the big fella, changed life in Dallas. And quite frankly, you saw it when they played the Philadelphia Eagles. We were up 21-0. Then they changed to a 5-man front and we couldn't score a point. He was wreaking havoc all game. And I watched the all 22 of that game. He was a monster in that second half. Quinnen Williams is an elite ball player. And then Jonathan Bullard, they acquired him from Tennessee. I think he signed via free agency. He's another guy who's just a solid player, has a good career in the NFL. Another depth piece for them. Now, remember, the Dallas Cowboys, they're not playing a 5-man front. They're playing a 3-4 front with an occasional 5 to 6 man front every once in a while. Again, Christian Parker is the defensive coordinator who was a defensive backs coach in Philadelphia. So these guys are also running a new scheme. They don't have Ezeiruaku, who I believe now, darn, I don't remember if he went to Washington or not. I will find out that information at some other point, but he's not in Dallas anymore. Kenny Clark, Donovan Ezeiruaku, Quinnen Williams, Rashan Gary. They also have other guys like Sam Williams, who we'll talk about in just a second here. And Malachi Lawrence is also a guy that they have on the edge who kind of can sub-play at linebacker and stuff like that. They have a lot of guys who are flexible at certain positions that can do a lot of things on the defensive line. So again, when it comes to the Eagles defensive lineup versus the Cowboys defensive lineup, depending on where you're looking at, I call it a push. Okay. I think Quinnen Williams is the best player here. However, I think Jalen Carter is better than Kenny Clark. I think Jordan Davis is better than Kenny Clark. I think Ezeiruaku might be better than Nolan Smith. I think Rashan Gary, depending on where they put Jonathan Grenard, which we'll talk about in a second, he might be a push. Okay. So Jonathan Bullard, I don't think is quite as good as these first four guys, as Moro Jomo, Davis, Carter, or Smith, but he's better than Byron Young and Ty Robinson, in my opinion. So again, call it a push, depending on the scheme, depending on the day. I'm going to give a nod to the Dallas defensive line. I think there's more proven players here. I think there's guys here who are coming in more hungry than the Philadelphia Eagles. There's not a lot of contract disputes going on this Dallas Cowboys defensive lineup. I think Rashan Gary, a good, solid player. Ezeiruaku, a solid player. Kenny Clark, a staple, solid player. Quinnen Williams is elite. And then Bullard, I think, is a good rotational piece, plus whatever else they're going to have on the back end with the linebacker spot, which is what we're going to talk about right now. So this is the Eagles linebacking room here. Okay. Jalen Hunt, Jihaad Campbell had a really nice rookie campaign. Zack Baun, I think, has been exceptional since his time in Philadelphia. Jeremiah Trotter, also small London, can also be here as well, but I think Jeremiah Trotter is going to get the nod and get some playing time this year. And then Jonathan Grenard, who can sub as an edge player for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think while Jonathan Grenard's a grown-up and it's nice to have an adult in the building, especially for this defense, in terms of whether or not he's going to be elite for us, I don't know. He's had some up and down years, as we've talked about in the past. Zack Baun's exceptional. Jihaad Campbell, I think, is going to take a step forward. He played really good in the first 8 games that he was here in Philadelphia last season until Nakobe Dean came onto the scene. I like his upside. I thought he played really good, especially in coverage. I thought he was really, really exceptional. And then Jalen Hunt, I think, is as good of a player as we have in Philadelphia in terms of his ability and his potential. He can cover. He can sack the quarterback. He can play the run. I think he's a complete player, and he's growing into a role in Philadelphia where they're going to be expecting some big things from him, if not this year, next year. Okay. And then Jeremiah Trotter is just a smart player. He always knows where to be and always is around the ball, especially in practice and all this training camp and mini camp stuff. Dallas Cowboys linebacking room. Again, I didn't quite know exactly how to qualify Sam Williams or Malachi Lawrence, so I just put them at edges because they get sub as like outside linebacker or put their hand in the dirt. Really kind of depends on the play and what they want to do. But we start off with Malachi Lawrence. DeMarvion Overshown, a really good linebacker. I love his game. Again, his problem is health, right? D. Withers comes from the San Francisco 49ers. He's an acquisition that they've made. And then I don't know this young man's name, Barham. Apparently, a lot of guys in Dallas like him. Hold on, let me take a sip of water. Forgive me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm running a little bit of a cold here. I know it's summertime, but that AC, sometimes it gets you. I was talking about Barham. Now, I don't know much about him. But again, he's a guy that in Dallas people like, getting snaps, and he's probably going to be seeing the field a good amount of time. So I put him in. And again, the second half of last year, the Dallas defense was not terrible. They weren't as bad as they were in the beginning of the year once they traded Micah Parsons. So if you couple the defensive line with some of the guys that they have here, all of a sudden you got something cooking here in the Big D in Dallas right now. And on our side of the ball with Vic Fangio, year 3. Again, I'm giving the nod to the Philadelphia Eagles defense. It doesn't really matter. I'm going position by position group. And yes, I gave some nod to the defensive line for Dallas, but everywhere else, I'm giving the nod to the Philadelphia Eagles because, quite frankly, none of these guys here, as good as Overshown is and as good as Malachi Lawrence can be, and as talented as I believe Sam Williams is as an edge rusher, not necessarily a total package edge rusher, but he can get after the quarterback. He's definitely a solid player. I don't think any of them are as good as what Zack Baun is, as what Jihaad Campbell is, as what J. Hunt is. So in that sense, I'm giving the nod to the Philadelphia Eagles, okay? So really not much of a discussion there, as again, quite frankly, the Dallas Cowboys defense, as you see on the bottom ticker here, it's the biggest question mark on the team. The offense is fine. I think the offense is as good as it gets in the NFL. It's whether or not this defense and Christian Parker can get them to play top 20-ish type football, right? If the offense has the same output as they did last season and the Dallas Cowboys defense plays closer to like top 20, top 15 type of defense, you got a really good team in Dallas here, okay? And I'm going to be objective about that. However, I just don't believe they're going to make that kind of a jump in Dallas right now. Lastly, the defensive back room. There's not even a question here. It's Philadelphia all the way. They're just clearly better than the Dallas Cowboys on the back end. Cooper Dejean and Quinyon Mitchell. That's really all that needs to be said. Now, I like Tariq Woolen's skill set, and he's been really, really impressive in camp. I am going to be curious as to see how he's going to suffice in a zone-style defense all year long. Because really in Seattle, when he was with Pete Carroll, they were playing like a press man type of, like a press zone type of coverage, where he can use his size, he can use makeup speed and all that stuff. Playing a traditional zone is a little bit different than just playing press man or press zone type of coverage. And he's also a guy who tends to be undisciplined. And in Vic Fangio's scheme, being a disciplined player is very important. It's why he really liked Reed Blankenship so much, who has been replaced by Andrew Makuba and Marcus Epps. In Dallas, they got some talent here as well. Daron Bland, again, I think he's like an okay player. He tends to be, he can get beat every once in a while, but he's a solid player. Kobe Durant came from the Rams. I think he's a nice addition to the squad here. Caleb Downs, they drafted, who I think was one of the best players in the draft, if not the best player in the draft. Caleb Downs is a really, really good ball player, and I just put him as defensive back. He could play the nickel. He could play safety. He could play the linebacker. He could do it all in terms of his versatility. Really, really solid player. I think Christian Parker is going to have fun working with him. Jalen Thompson, a safety from the Arizona Cardinals, also signed with the Dallas Cowboys. I think is an upgrade from what they had last season. Good player, solid player. Played alongside Budda Baker, so you could tell, he has a lot of game. And he also played with Jonathan Gannon, who runs a similar scheme as what Christian Parker is going to be running. So I think that is going to transition well for them. And then Malik Hooker is another good player who's been solid throughout his whole career. And then, not to mention other contributors on the bottom here, Siobhan Ravel Jr. is another cornerback in Dallas. Again, they have talent here in the Dallas Cowboys defensive back room. They're just not as good as Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper Dejean and Drew Makuba and Tariq Woolen, right? It's just not as good as these guys. Now, I am curious to see as to how this defensive backroom is going to play without the tutelage of Christian Parker. Now they have Mike Pellegrino there as a defensive backs coach, who again comes from Connecticut High School. Shout out to Mike Pellegrino. But again, Christian Parker was an elite defensive backs coach. Mike Pellegrino is a good defensive backs coach. I don't know if he has the track record like Christian Parker does. So all in all, I am going to give the tip of the cap to the Philadelphia Eagles when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. And I'm not really going to talk about the special teams. I'm not going to talk about, Jake Elliott and Brandon Aubrey, because we already kind of know Brandon Aubrey's a weapon. Jake Elliott has a little bit of a question mark coming into this season. I like Jake Elliott, but, sometimes Jake Elliott likes to kick to the left. He misses every once in a while, and then, all that jazz. Brandon Aubrey, you get past you get past half field, you got 3 points on the board. Okay, that's really what it comes down to with him. So, all in all, it really comes down to what the schedule looks like for the Philadelphia Eagles and Dallas Cowboys. Now, in terms of team breakdown, on the offensive side of the ball, I give the nod to the Dallas Cowboys. I think on offense, they are clearly the better team. I think right now they have less questions about the offense than they do in Philadelphia. And with the consistency of play caller and scheme and all that jazz, you have to give the tip of the cap to the Dallas Cowboys. Again, purely regular season. When it comes to the playoffs, it's a little bit of a different animal. But right now, we can't talk about the playoffs. We have to talk about the regular season because we haven't played it down yet, right? So, but on the defensive side of the ball, I think it's clear. Philadelphia is just better flat out. They got the better coordinator. They got the better linebackers coach. They have the better everything for the most part. Dallas does have the best player, in my opinion, in terms of these guys, in Quinnen Williams on the defensive side of the ball. But other than that, there's really nowhere else I give the nod to the Dallas Cowboys on defense. And I think that's just because you have to go out there and prove it, right? I think Dallas Cowboy fans can appreciate that. They have a lot of work to do on the defensive side of the ball, and they're going into the season with a lot of optimism, as they should. But in terms of defensive output, Philadelphia is projected to be a top 5, top 7 type of defense. Dallas is just hoping they could be out of the bottom third. Okay, so let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. That's really all I got in terms of comparisons for the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got. Thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you back here next time for the next episode of the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. Hey, thank you so much for getting through this episode of the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. If you want more content just like this, hit the subscribe button below to lock in with me. Thank you so much for your support on the opposite side of the camera, and check us out on other platforms in the description box below. And we'll see you back here next time for the next episode of the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast.